What's up, guys? Welcome back for another video. So today we're going to be talking about my 141 training and instrument. We're talking about stage 2 this video. So out of the 3 stage checks, this is going to be video number 2. After that, we're going to go ahead and talk about our check ride. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. See. So as far as stage 2 goes for my part 141 training and instrument, it's been awesome. Really, very awesome. It's kind of insisted more on, instead of the maneuver side of things and the initial kind of training where stage 1 was, now we actually moved into doing different kinds of approaches, learning about holds and departure procedures, arrival procedures, and basically that's kind of like the gist of it. So moving into it, it's kind of like it just teaches you every phase of flight of what an instrument flight would look like. So you learn about what departure procedures will look like. So, you know, if the clouds are really low, let's say 500 feet, maybe 1,000 feet, and you need to leave, and no one else is, there's no VFR traffic, there's no visual traffic, it's only people that are having clearances and stuff like that. Those people are the ones that are going to be allowed to basically depart into IFR conditions. And that being said, there is certain criterias, and it kind of like goes into the regulations as far as like if you're part 91 or part 135, 121. For us in training, we're just part 91, so there is no departure or like takeoff minimums, but you still gotta learn them. So you learn about the different kind of like minimums that are used to take off, and then stuff like obstacle departure procedures. So if in Florida, we not really have too many, crazy things around here just because there's no mountains and high terrain like that. So for the most part, departure procedures here are pretty straightforward. But what they're used for mainly is to kind of like, get you away from mountains. And like, if you can't see a mountain that's right in front of you, all right, well, you need to immediately take off. And by the time you hit, maybe like a waypoint or something like that, you need to immediately hit that turn and go somewhere else. That way you don't fly into that mountain that you can't see because you're in a cloud. So that's kind of what that's for. There's also standard instrument departure procedures, and a lot of it's kind of just coordinates with you and yourself, and that way you can have a visual or graphical or even a textual like procedure printout. That way you can perform that procedure, or sometimes you can like have ATC can like clear you for one, and you can use that. Once you kind of learn all like the departure procedures, then you start learning about en route stuff. So what Victor Airways are, all the different consistencies between just navigating, whether it's using VOR, GPS, stuff like that, to get from one point to another. Also like your minimum altitudes, and also to go ahead and move into kind of the stuff that's about the en route phase of the flight. So breaking things up, there's the departure, there's the en route, and then there's the arrival phase. We just talked about the departure, so now the en route stuff is honestly pretty straightforward. It's like I said, it's mostly about learning about your different altitudes that you have to be at certain places, and then how to navigate from one place to another. And that's kind of like the time where any person can set themselves up for the next phase of flight, because instrument is such a technical and such a very, you need to be on top of everything kind of flying, especially since it's what they use in the airlines. You definitely want to make sure that you're able to be a step ahead of the plane. You never want the plane to be ahead of you. And maybe saying that means if you're in the en route phase, that arrival's coming next, especially if it's within the next 10, 20 miles. So why not go ahead and start getting things ready to have that set. So then once you get to that point, you already know what your frequencies are, already know what your weather is, what your possible delays might be, stuff like that. Why wait and watch Netflix and eat popcorn in the plane and sit back when you got things to do? It's time to work. So obviously, hopefully nobody's watching Netflix while flying, but you never know. Also, another big thing about the en route phase, and especially when you're talking about like when you're transitioning from the en route to the arrival phase, is that there's going to be times where the weather is bad at your airport, or there's just a lot of traffic. And what you need to do if that's the case is hold. A lot of times ATC will give you a fix, which could be a GPS fix, and for example, and that is a place where you need to be able to basically fly a pattern or fly an oval, a circle. These are just different ways to describe it, but it's just pattern up in the air to straight line, take a right, head back, take another right, and keep on doing that. And typically they're either timed, so there's 1 minute legs, so essentially it would be a 4 minute hold, or sometimes they're also distance holds, which could take a little bit more time. And then there's different speeds, there's different altitudes depending on what speed and what aircraft you have, and that there's just like that's the breakdown of the legality of it. But holds in general are just going to be ways that allow you to delay your arrival time and give ATC, for example, a chance to catch up and let traffic clear up in front of you. That way they can clear you to go and start your arrival. All right, so then talking about all of our arrival stuff. So there's stuff that are called stars, and it's basically standard terminal arrival routes. And it's same thing, kind of like the departure procedures. It's a graphical or a textual procedure that you can have printed, you can have on your iPad, and it's it's published by the FAA. So it's a document that basically simplifies how you can arrive to a certain location or fix or whatever it might be, and the traffic is simplified. It's all highways in the air to simplify things. So all these highways, from depending on where you're at, and some of them can get pretty complicated, but let's just say there's converging highways. They all come to a certain point, which then leads to another point. So it simplifies it instead of everybody coming all at once from all different kinds of directions. So it kind of like feeds it, and a lot of them are called like feeder routes and stuff like that. So now that you got your departure, your en route, and then your arrival procedures all set up, now all that's left is to land, which is when you're in absence of any visual references, what you do is a approach. So you shoot a IFR approach, which basically is a simplified way to use your navigational equipment. That way it lines you up with the center of the runway. So once you get to a certain minimum of altitude, you should, in theory, have the airport in sight and be out of the clouds. If you don't have that airport in sight, and there's 91-175, which is a regulation that specifies what allows you to descend below and complete the landing. If you don't have all that in sight, which is essentially the runway, you have to do what's called a missed approach, which will basically, to go around, it's a way for you to leave the airport environment, go somewhere else, and have either a diversion, go to your alternate airport, or even give the approach another shot. And so when we talk about different approaches, we also talk about different navigational equipment that allows you to do certain types of approaches. So parts of stage 2, and the majority of it, honestly, is what is introduced and is what you build your skills upon, is all of the approaches. So there's stuff like VOR approaches, there's ILS approaches, which are precision approaches, and then there's also RNAV, which is basically GPS approaches. And then you also break things down into like how do each approach work? How does that navigational piece of equipment work? So then you really have a deeper understanding of it, and then it basically allows you to be a proficient pilot. And another thing that's pretty amazing about all of the different approaches and practicing them all is honestly that you get to practice things like your comms, and then also what happens if that navigational equipment fails on you. What do you do if whether it's one of your instruments or if it's the GPS, can you still complete the approach? Is it safe for you to do the approach, or is this time for you to go missed, go to your alternate, go find some better weather, because you won't be able to find that runway. And a lot of it's just a practice. It's just putting in reps. It's allowing you to become a better pilot yourself and creating that, you know, that ADM, that aeronautical decision making. That way, what would be the best course of route to, you know, go and do? Should I continue the approach or should I abandon it? That's the golden question, really. All right, so then after all of that learning, we went ahead and did our stage 2 check. So what our stage 2 check included was 3 different kinds of approaches. One was an RNAV, so the GPS approach. Another one was an ILS 2-3 of Tampa Executive, and then the other was a localizer of 2-3 for Tampa Executive. So the 3 different kinds of approaches. That way they kind of get a good grasp of, all right, can you do each type of approach? And while you're doing the approach, you know, if we fail something like your navigational aid, what are you going to do? How are you going to do that? Are you going to report to ATC that part was that failed, which is required? You know, they really break down everything, and it's a lot to handle at once. It's constant because you're trying to think of ahead of the airplane what's going to come next, but at the same time, you know, something can just pop up like that. So then you gotta have a workload like crazy, and it's awesome. It's so much fun, and it is a lot of work. It is hard, but it's what makes you safe. It's what makes you proficient, and it's what's gonna give you this job. It's gonna make you just a better person and a better pilot in general. All right, guys. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed all the little clips of how this stage check went, and kind of just my description of it. A lot of it really just came down to what you learn about all of the different phases of flight, but as far as the flying portion of it goes, was more of the approach portion. So stage 3, we'll actually go ahead and move into talking a little bit more of like the cross country building and actually doing and putting all of it together, stage 1 and stage 2. So I'm super excited for that. We'll go ahead and, you know, start that next week. So let's go. Can't wait. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Stay tuned, subscribe, like if you like the video, and I'll see you later.